Hubby and I recently took a giant leap of faith, packed up our belongings in a box, and took a plane to the other side of the world to explore foreign lands and seek out adventure. The plane trip was quite comfortable. We booked 2 tickets with Qantas on their new non-stop flight from Perth to Paris. We needed to fly from Sydney first, which was around 5 hours. I took the opportunity to watch Inside Out 2 again, while my hubby did some programming. They fed us a delicious lunch on the way to Perth, complete with our own choice of beverage and this really tasty bread. They even gave us magnums for dessert. The layover in Perth was about an hour. While the crew were busy preparing for the 17-hour flight, I took the opportunity to play some video games and my hubby programmed. Before we knew it, it was time to get back on the plane for the longest leg of our journey. We were lucky enough to have the row to ourselves, but unlucky in that we couldn't move the armrests up to stretch out and sleep as we were in the exit row. No matter, we tried our best to make it work. The staff on board the flight were amazing. I felt a little queasy halfway through, and the flight attendant did all she could to make sure I felt better and checked up on me regularly. I was a little surprised to see how empty the flight was. It was great because it made the trip there nice and quiet and peaceful. We were given another delicious meal for dinner, and then the lights dimmed and it was time to try and get some sleep. Neither of us slept very well, so we were able to peep out the window as we flew over some interesting places like Alexandria, Egypt. After a disturbed night's sleep, it was time for breakfast. I chose the hot option while my hubby went for a healthy fruit salad. To get us psyched for our trip to Italy, we watched a documentary on Pompeii. The sun started to rise as our flight flew over the city of Paris. I could see from above why they call it the City of Lights. A rush of excitement came over me as our flight began its descent. All our dreams and planning had led to this moment, arriving in Paris, France. From here, our grand adventure would begin, and we couldn't wait to get started. On a bright, crisp Saturday morning, my hubby and I arrived in Paris, France. We couldn't check in to our apartment until the afternoon, so we booked a place to mind our bags while we explored the city. We wandered the streets close to our apartment. We were able to see Notre Dame, so we decided to head over to check on the progress of the restoration. On the way, we saw buskers and street performers, and I knew I had come to the right place. The restoration was well underway and will be finished in time for Christmas. I decided to stop by a local souvenir shop and begin a collection of keychains for each country I was about to visit.
Video selfie.
Video selfie. Oh. Is everyone else watching?
Needless to say, we were awestruck by the beauty of Paris. Everywhere you looked, there was something to make you drop your jaw and say, wow. We went to a museum just under Notre Dame and saw our first Roman ruins of the trip. Then we headed above ground to do some more wandering and find a spot by the Seine to have our afternoon apéro. Feeling a bit peckish, we headed to a local cafe for some pumpkin soup and a glass of wine. And before heading back to get our bags, we walked past some people painting, and my heart sang. We'd made it to Paris. After picking up our bags, we climbed up the stairs and entered our humble abode for the next few days.
There you go. Cute little apartment.
It's good.
Oh. I didn't expect to see this.
What is it?
That's the bathroom. That's like the shower. That's a square.
It's better than nothing. What's this?
I don't know. Sunlight, I guess. Sunlight at specific times of the day.
After having a much needed shower and changing into some new clothes, we headed down to the Seine to enjoy some cheese, meat, bread and wine. It was the perfect way to end our first day in Paris. The 6th of October was jam-packed. Looking back, I'm honestly so impressed that we were able to do so much on the day after we arrived. First on our itinerary was to head to Musée de L'orangerie to see Claude Monet's water lilies. It was the first Sunday of the month, which meant we could see them for free. We decided to walk there, and on the way we saw the Tour Eiffel, Le Louvre, and walked through Jardin des Tuileries. It wasn't a short walk from where we were staying in Le Marais, but it did allow us to see a whole lot, take lots of pictures, and generally lose our minds. Even in the autumn on a rainy day, Paris is still stunning. We used our Paris Museum Pass to pre-book the tickets online. We chose a morning session so we could fit more into the afternoon. This is usually one of the more quiet museums in Paris. However, we were there on a free Sunday and a lot of people turned up to contemplate and meditate on these beautiful depictions of the interplay of light on water. Downstairs, there was a collection of modern art. I recommend getting an audio guide for only €6. They are very informative no matter where you go, and you get to learn a whole lot more than reading the descriptions on display. Next, we took the Toot Bus, a hop-on, hop-off bus. We had booked tickets for 72 hours to see the city and its sights. We had no particular plan of where to go next, so this was a great way to rest our feet and see some more of the city. Again, there was an audio guide on board telling us about the city, its history, culture, and monuments. We eventually arrived at l'Arc de Triomphe, a giant monument that also acts as a roundabout. It had 12 roads going into it and 8 lanes going round it. I was in awe of its impressive scale. We decided to make this our stop. The traffic was diverted due to a parade happening on the Champs-Élysées, but this gave me the opportunity to hunt down a street vendor selling crepes. I opted for a simple beurre et sucre, butter and sugar crepe, and nibbled at it as we walked.
Good. About your crepe.
There are entrances to the monument that go underground so you don't get squished by the vehicles going round it. It was inaugurated in 1836. It's a war memorial that honours those who fought and died for France in the French Revolution and Napoleonic Wars. This is the tomb of the unknown soldier from World War I. Our Paris Museum Pass gave us access to the monument, so we climbed up the 284 steps to the top. There is a lift for those who have impaired mobility. At the top, there are more war memorial monuments as well as a gift shop. The view from the top is incredible. You can see most of Paris from up there. It was fun trying to spot monuments and interesting buildings in the distance. We could also see the parade on the Champs-Élysées, so we decided to go there next. Back down the 284 steps we went. I couldn't work out what the parade was, but in researching it now I can see that it was the 2024 Tropical Carnival. It's usually held in July but was postponed due to the Olympics. Hundreds of dancers dressed in gorgeous traditional costumes paraded down the Champs-Élysées to the thumping rhythm of drums, tooting of trumpets and whimsical whistles. It was around this time we started looking for lunch.
You know what they call a quarter pounder with cheese in Paris? They don't call it a quarter pounder with cheese?
Oh man, they got the metric system. They wouldn't know what the fuck a quarter pounder is.
And what do they call it?
They call it Royale with cheese.
Royale with cheese.
That's right.
After eating the iconic burgers from Macca's, we hit the streets once again for some more sightseeing. There's just so much to see and do in Paris. We were there for 2 weeks and we still didn't get around to doing everything there that's on offer. I particularly liked the bridge called Pont Alexander III, named after the Russian Tsar. It's the most ornate bridge in Paris, decorated in the Art Nouveau style with beautiful statues of cherubs, nymphs and winged horses, plus plenty of gold. It was built between 1896 and 1900 for the Universal Exposition, as were the nearby Grand Palais and Petit Palais. We got a little carried away and realised we would be late for our next activity on our itinerary, so we booked an Uber toot sweet and headed over to the other side of town. One thing my husband and I really wanted to do in Paris was visit the Catacombs, named in reference to Roman catacombs that had been discovered around the time the catacombs changed their use from a series of quarries to a municipal ossuary.
Here we are in the Catacombs of Paris. We just climbed down 200 steps and we are now a certain level underneath the systems of Paris. We're underneath the metros. We're all the way down underneath the water. And now we're going to go see some birds.
There's a black line at the top, which they used to sort out where they were going inside the tunnels.
The tunnels and quarries are 20 metres under the streets of Paris and span an area of 8 square kilometres or 3 miles. The public has access to only 1.5 kilometres of these labyrinthine tunnels. There were so many tunnels and quarries that parts of the city of Paris started to collapse in the mid-1700s. The workers of the Department of General Quarry Inspection were tasked with mapping and consolidating the tunnels to prevent further collapses. In the late 1700s, Paris was going through a major public health crisis. All the cemeteries were beginning to fill up. The decision was made to convert the old quarries into a consecrated place where these remains could rest in peace. A man called Charles Axel Guillemot was charged with the task of moving the remains to the tunnels, which was done at night so as not to upset Parisians. The first bones were removed from the largest cemetery in Paris at the time, the Saints Innocent Cemetery. They were poured down holes or wells where the workers who were consolidating the quarries would pile them up. The remains from many other cemeteries around Paris were also moved to the catacombs, and there are labels all around to tell visitors where the bones have come from. In the mid-1800s, Inspector Haricard de Thury rearranged the piled bones into what we see today. In most areas of the catacombs, the bones are piled up lining the walkway. Smaller bones are behind the longer bones and skulls. This is the well they call the Fountain of the Samaritan. Next to it is a passage from the Bible often associated with wells from John 4:14. In other areas, the bones are arranged in altars, sculptures, or columns. Scattered throughout are various quotes and proverbs about life and death written in both French and Latin. If you have a tour guide with you, you're able to gain access to some of these more fragile areas that are sealed off to the general public. Again, we had an audio guide which taught us a lot about the history of the catacombs. It was included in the tickets. I found the catacombs to be very serene and peaceful. It felt like the bones had been carefully placed to rest with the utmost respect and that they were being very well looked after. There were attendants seated throughout to prevent anyone who may be tempted to touch or even take a morbid souvenir home with them. We were lucky enough to be there when they were restoring the column section of the catacombs, and I must confess it does sound like the kind of job I would enjoy. Working in the peace and quiet amongst the remains of those who have come before me, reverently placing their remains to rest. It's worth noting you don't exit the catacombs where you entered, so make sure you have your Google Maps ready to point you in the right direction home. Thank you so much for watching until the end of the video. If you liked what you saw, please make sure you click the like button and comment down below what your favourite part of the video was. If you want to see more of our adventures through Europe, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell. A bientôt!